The White House reminded Syrian President Bashar al-Assad on Tuesday that the United States would retaliate if he used chemical weapons on his people again. Let us be clear, it remains our firm stance that, if President Bashar al-Assad chooses to again use chemical weapons, the United States and its allies will respond swiftly and appropriately, the president's press secretary, Sarah Sanders, said in a statement. President Donald Trump warned Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and his allies Iran and Russia in a Monday evening tweet not to recklessly attack Syria's rebel-held Idlib province. His White House said Tuesday that the U.S. is closely monitoring the situation, calling out Assad, Russia and Iran and repeating Trump's warning that a large-scale attack on rebel-held territory would be a reckless escalation of an already tragic conflict and would risk the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. Sanders in a Tuesday afternoon statement said the United States will continue to work tirelessly with its allies to find a lasting diplomatic solution to resolve the hostilities in Syria under the auspices of United Nations Security Council Resolution 2254. The Kremlin on Tuesday dismissed Trump's comments, describing Idlib, where jihadist insurgent factions dominate, as a nest of terrorism. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov added, "We know that Syria's armed forces are preparing to resolve this problem." Iran echoed that theme. Terrorist groups in Idlib have mixed with the people, said Abbas Araqchi, deputy foreign minister, according to the Islamic Republic News Agency. They are using people as human shields. Russian and Syrian jets hammered the rebel stronghold on Tuesday, a war monitor said, days before leaders of Russia, Iran, and Turkey were to meet to discuss the expected Syrian government offensive. Trump warned against, and international groups worried would spark a humanitarian disaster. Since Russia's entry into the war on his side in 2015, Assad and his other close allies, Iran and a group of regional Shi'ite militias it backs, have forced the rebels from a succession of bastions including Aleppo, eastern Ghouta and Deraa. For Assad, the defeat of rebels in the northwestern province would mean breaking the last major stronghold of active military opposition to his rule, though other large areas also remain beyond his control. Warplanes bombarded the countryside Tuesday around Jisr al-Shughour on the western edge of the rebel enclave of Idlib after weeks of lull, killing 13 civilians but no fighters, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights and a rebel source. A Syrian government minister said the siege of Idlib would probably be resolved by force. Until now, military action is more likely than reconciliations, Reconciliation Minister Ali Haidar told Russia's Arabic language Sputnik news agency. Idlib is different from other regions because of the large numbers of fighters, Haidar said. However, we cannot say there is no gateway to reconciliation. Damascus uses the term reconciliation for the negotiated rebel surrenders that have taken place in some areas. Half of Idlib's 3 million people have already fled there from their homes in other parts of Syria, according to the United Nations, and any offensive there threatens new displacement and human misery. It could also spark a wider confrontation with Turkey, a supporter of the rebels, whose army has set up observation posts along the Idlib front lines to deter fighting. Turkey's Hürriyet Daily reported that Turkish armed forces were reinforcing the Idlib border with M60 tanks, and Reuters television filmed a convoy heading towards the border. Tuesday's airstrikes came hours after Trump warned Assad and his allies not to recklessly attack Idlib, saying that hundreds of thousands might die. The Russians and Iranians would be making a grave humanitarian mistake to take part in this potential human tragedy, Trump tweeted. Hundreds of thousands of people could be killed. Don't let that happen. Share this article. Share. The United Nations and 8 groups have warned that a full assault on Idlib could spark a humanitarian catastrophe on a scale not yet seen in Syria's 7-year-old conflict. A top U.S. general estimated there were 30,000 militants in Idlib, but said if there were major military operations, we can expect humanitarian catastrophe, and urged operations that mitigated the risks to civilians. Earlier on Monday, Iran called for militants to be cleaned out of Idlib as it prepared for talks with Syria and Russia about confronting the last major enclave held by rebels opposed to Assad. Syrian government forces are planning a phased offensive in Idlib and surrounding areas held by insurgents fighting Assad, who has been backed by both Russian and Iranian forces in the country's civil war. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has said Washington views any government assault on Idlib as an escalation of Syria's war, and the State Department also warned that Washington would respond to any chemical attack by Damascus. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif visited Damascus to discuss plans for an upcoming summit between the leaders of Iran, Russia, and Turkey, which Tehran will host on September 7 to discuss Idlib, Iran's Fars news agency reported. Zarif likewise told state television, "Our efforts are for the exit of terrorists from Idlib to be carried out with the least human cost." He and Peskov said Idlib would be a major subject of discussion at the September 7 summit meeting between Russia's Vladimir Putin, Turkey's Tayyip Erdogan and Iran's Hassan Rouhani. Turkey, which has long supported anti-Assad rebels, has cooperated with Russia and Iran on talks over Syria in recent years, and has troops in the Idlib region on an observation mission. Zarif met Assad, Syrian Prime Minister Imad Khamis and Syrian Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim, who asked for Iran to continue its support, according to Iran's Fars news. All of Syrian territory must be preserved, and all the sects and groups should start the round of reconstruction as one collective, and the displaced should return to their families, Zarif said, according to Fars news. And the remaining terrorists in the remaining parts of Idlib must be cleaned out, and the region should be placed back under the control of the Syrian people. Assad's office said in a statement, the two sides asserted that the pressures from some Western states on Syria and Tehran will not deter the two countries from continuing to defend their principles. Last week, Iran's defense minister traveled to Damascus and signed an agreement for defense cooperation between the two countries with his Syrian counterpart. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Bahram Qasemi said Iran would continue its support for Syrian government forces in its battle in Idlib. Zarif went to Sayyida Zainab, a shrine south of Damascus revered by Shiites, as his first stop on the trip, according to Fars News.